So onto my MOT. So onto my MOT. I don't really know how to put this, to be honest with you, because hello all and welcome back to my channel, Rover Turbo. This is part 8 on the Range Rover project. In the last video, part 7, you would have seen me do one side and the brake pads and stuff on the rear. So this part is basically a continuation of the other side. I didn't record much of that, obviously, because I've already done a good sort of video on the one side. So in this video, basically, I'm going to go a little bit into the battery drain and then take it for an MOT. So in this part, we should find out what's happening with the MOT and hopefully a bit of a breakdown on what it is I'm going to do with this now. So how far I'm going to go with it. So as usual, please comment, like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and let's get on with the video. Right, well, I'm working on the other side. So, sun's out, it's lovely and warm, feeling good, got a cup of tea. So all I need to do is try and undo that connector. There. I've already tried to undo it, but I didn't want to break it where I was before. Now it doesn't matter if I do. This one, the pipe, I can't really show you, but that pipe is a lot more tighter than where it goes, and it goes up underneath this. So this one's going to be a lot more of a pain in the bum. So I'm hoping that I can get that undone and reuse it with a little bit more finessing. Right, a bit of an update. I tried to undo it and I couldn't, so I just cut it off. Now the next problem I've got is I need to be able to get this bolt out to get this bracket off, to get this hose out. So what I've got is I've got one of these, a multi-tool with a metal cutting blade. So that's how I cut the brake pipe off. And then I've started to cut through the nut, but both my batteries are flat, so I might have enough in there now to get a chisel in there and then hopefully just break it off. It's still not wanting to come off, so I'm just gonna have to wait and cut through it a bit more. I think I might have gone about halfway through maybe. So while I'm doing that, while I'm waiting for the batteries to charge, I might see if I can get my brake pipe flaring tool on here. The thing is, it's got to be able to reach back up in there. I mean, there's no slack on this at all. It just disappears off over the top and then goes down. Right, so yeah, I reckon that'll work, and there's just enough slack on that. And you push this back up into place, that'll go in there, no problem. And there's still a little bit of flex on that. So all I need to do is the end of that is a bit wonky. You can see that there's a bit of an angle. So I've got to get that flat without taking any more of it. Normally I would use the pipe cutter, but there's a minimum amount you can take off because it has to be a certain way in for it to be flat, for it not to deform when you turn it. So I can't do that, so I'm gonna have to do that with a file and get that flat. So I'm gonna work on doing that, because it's such a small format, that will go in there fine, and we'll be able to do that. So this is actually going to work out rather well, but at least if we get a flare on the end of here, I know I can make it work with another little bit of hose if I need to, pipe I should say. Right, so that's that clamped on there with the die in, so I've just got to tighten that. This is a brilliant bit of kit, this is fantastic. I don't know why I've taken so long to get one of these. It's working, you can just see the space I'm working in here, it's just such a tight space. So that's just brilliant. So hopefully this flare comes out all right. If not, then I've made it worse myself. Okay, so I don't know if anyone noticed on that last clip what I forgot to do before I did the flare, and that is put the nut on. So I made the flare, well, I started to make the flare, and I suddenly realised that I hadn't put the nut on and had to cut it off and start again. So now this is even shorter now, so now I need to double check that's actually going to fit. It's only like literally by the size of a flare, which is what, 3mm. So and then the pipe was all bent, so this wouldn't even slide on. The pipe obviously, because it's going to have to go up quite a way for it to be able to get the tool on, so that does slide up there. Right, so that's the flare done. That's nice, I like that. Lovely, with the nut on it. I've obviously checked that this thing does screw into a new pipe, so it allows to pull this out. So I just need to undo obviously all the clips that's on the other side, and then undo the caliper bolt, and then put the new one on, and hopefully that'll reach. Right, so that's the pipe all in. That one came undone, which was nice. That one didn't, as it was before, but I've kept the bit that goes over the top, so I'm going to zip tie that on. This is not going to reach. It's just not close enough. I've tried to, I don't want to put it too hard because I don't want to damage anything, but it's just too far away. So I'm going to have to make up a little piece of pipe, and I'll direct this back up here. I'll have this coming up here, and then I'll come round and come back down and snake into them. It's the only choice that I've got. I can't replace that complete pipe, so I'll just somehow try and make that look as good as I can. This doesn't really push back into there, so I'll make something up and join it. Picked up a couple of joiners. So literally just put a flare on one end and a flare on the other, and then join the two pipes together. So it's quite common on cars, you'll see these sort of down the middle of the car, the brake pipes will join together, or they've been joined to replace a piece of pipe or something like that. Alright, so I've made up this little piece of pipe. I'm not exactly happy about it, I don't know why, but there's not a lot else I can do really. This is all now done. Apart, I've just got to bleed the brakes. So that's all done. That's in there secure, that clip. And then, I don't know if you can really see that in there, you probably can't. I've painted it with a bit of matte black paint. Give it a good dosing, just so it doesn't look as obvious. So that's all done. So all I've got to do is bleed the brakes. And then there's the battery drain, which I've got to look into. It hasn't got all the nav and stuff in it because it's a HSE, which I don't think it had that in it anyway, so it hasn't got all that nav and the amp and stuff in the boot. So I'll get a clamp meter on it, and then obviously I think it's 4 or 5 days, I think the battery goes flat. Well, not flat, but it goes to sort of like 8 volts, where it just is as good as flat really. So yeah, so I'm going to get this done, and I'm going to see what the availability is for an MOT, because I think those pipes were the last thing I needed to do for an MOT. So we'll see what their availability is. Right, so I'm just doing a little bit more investigation into the battery drain. So what I've got here is a DC, or an AC and DC clamp meter. So you can select 40 amps or 400 amps AC or DC. So obviously it's in DC mode at the moment, but you can put it into AC. I've put it around, I think these are the connectors here for the LPG, which is registering, you know, barely, well, 0.1 of an amp. So I don't think it's that that's doing it. And then we've got these are the earth cables, or you can do it on the earth or positive. There's 0.3. Because this battery's got more than one positive connection, it's got the positive connection which comes down to here, which then goes down to the starter motor. It's also got this, which is the main power harness into the fuse box. So generally the best way of doing it is to the earth cable, because that only has one connection. That doesn't apply to the LPG because that has a separate earth connection. So generally you get a better average if you, this is going to have to be upside down because of the, so 0.2, 0.3 of an amp. And then that's around the main power cable, which is 0.4. So that's nearly, so if you combine that all together, so 0.4 of an amp going through there, and 0.1 of an amp, you know, you're up to the half an amp, which is quite a lot. Now this car has been sitting for a good 20 minutes, half an hour. The doors haven't been opened or closed. When these lights go out, it means that it's gone to sleep. All the ECUs have shut down. So I have been through and pulled out, just with a pair of pliers, going through this and just going through the most common things like navigation, even though it hasn't got it, but you just don't know what's been connected to it in the past. Lights, interior lights, boot lights, CD changer, internal fan, because sometimes these can run on, the final stage resistor, you know. So by pulling out the fuses, checking to see what the load is, and it literally is just a time-consuming, boring procedure of just literally pulling out a fuse and then checking to see whether it's dropped off or not. So it's just luck as to whether you find the fuse first or whether you find it last. So I'm going to continue on doing this until I get, you know, that down to, you know, 0, so 0.03 really is what I want to be looking at maximum. So I'll continue. Alright, so I think I've found the fuse, which is fuse 18, because now we've got 0.0, 0.02 on that, and on the main earth cable we've got 0.1, and then going on to the LPG we've got 0. Nothing, and they should be the same because technically it's the same circuit, I'm assuming. So yeah, so what's interesting is that fuse is the immobilizer, or one of them for the instrument, for the immobilizer. We've got 18, 25, 31 and 39. So I pull fuse 18 and it's for the immobilizer. I guess we need to try and start it, I guess, because if it is the immobilizer, I'm guessing, well, I don't know. I've never come across that before. Okay, so that could have been because I had my key in ignition, because now the key won't turn, or the steering column won't unlock. So I could have been on a red herring there, because because I was jacking up the rear of the car, I had it in neutral, so not to put strain on the pin in the automatic gearbox, in the park pin. So I left it in neutral and left the key in ignition. So I need to do all that again. Yeah, I've put that fuse back in again and the car's just broken up now. So we've got, yeah, 1 amp on that. .8 amps on that. So I need to wait for the car to shut back down, and then we'll go through all of that again. It could have been because I had my key when you put the key in ignition, it activates the steering column lock. So you can hear that click. You put the key in. So the key was in, and it was in position 1 because it was in neutral, and then I just disconnected the battery to stop it bonging. So I need to wait for it to fall to sleep again, and then we'll go through that again. I also fitted 2 new bonnet struts. Did I replace them both? Yeah, 2 new bonnet struts, because the bonnet, it would go up, but it would sort of you'd have to sort of give it a bit of a jiggle for it to stay up. I was always worried it was going to come down on my head. So you can buy these off of eBay really cheaply. I always have to replace these whenever I buy these. And I'm just doing the rear ones. So just got a couple of new. I also had to pop that clip in as well, that latch with a screwdriver, because the interior light was on, because before I didn't have the boot open. So it's the next day, and I'm doing a little bit more investigation on the Range Rover and the battery drain that I'm getting. I couldn't get any conclusive results yesterday from putting fuses and stuff like that, and I'm pretty sure that when I was doing it, obviously I didn't, you've got 2 power cables here. You've got one main power cable which goes off to the fuse box, and you've got this one which goes down to this unit here, which goes to here, which then goes down. I've disconnected it, but it goes off to the back here, and it joins another cable which then goes down to the starter motor, and then it bridges off and goes down to the alternator. So when you put the clamp meter around here, it was showing 0.5 amp, something like that. I've done a bit of reading up last night on, you know, because I have known before where alternators can be working absolutely fine, but they're draining the battery. So what I've done is I have taken the air pollen filter box out of there, and at the back there you've got this terminal post where this big thick cable, and that bolts onto there. So the battery's disconnected at the moment. So that bolts onto there. So this cable goes exclusively down to the alternator. Now, looking up last night, it has diodes inside. I knew there was diodes, and there's a rectifier pack and all that kind of stuff. I kind of already knew that, but I didn't really know what they did. So in the back, in the alternator, you have diodes which basically join the earth to positive. And diodes are basically one-way valves. They're basically electronic one-way valves, basically. So what the diodes are supposed to do is they're supposed to allow the battery voltage, or the charging current, part of changing the AC voltage that the alternator provides into DC, which is what the car system is. Part of that alternator pack converts from AC to DC, but what it also does is the diodes are part of that system. It stops the voltage, because it's permanently live all the time, connected directly to the battery. It stops the voltage from the battery going back through the alternator to earth, and that's what the diodes do, or part of what the diodes do. So what you can do is you can gain access to the positive connector directly to the alternator, which is what this is. That's not connected to anything else, and earth, obviously. If you put your multimeter into the diode setting, the principle is you should have a connection one way through the alternator from earth to positive, but you shouldn't have a connection. So you should have a connection from earth to positive, but not positive to earth. So by connecting the leads on the multimeter, you shouldn't have a connection. 0.3. I believe that in this setting, the multimeter puts about 0.3 of a volt through these cables. So it's showing close to the same. I'll get a good connection on there. 0.1, 0.2. So I think that's what it's supposed to be. So if you think about this, what this is doing, this is testing a connection between the positive connection of the alternator through to earth, and that there shouldn't be a connection from the positive terminal through to earth. And there is. The fact that there's sort of 0.2, 0.3 of a volt going through the alternator both ways, it would suggest that the alternator diode pack has failed. Right, so that's the all the brake pipes done. Obviously had a look at the battery drain there. We know what that is now. So I can't really, there's nothing I can do about that at the moment. I've got an MOT booked in tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock for this. So we'll get it through the MOT and then we'll see what more we can do about the battery drain. I'll worry about that at a later date. The MOT, it should pass the MOT, and I'm hoping it will go through with no advisories, bearing in mind the amount of time and money I've spent on this. So yeah, we'll pick up when I'm on the way to the MOT or at the MOT or somewhere around the MOT, and then fingers crossed it's passed. Right, so it's MOT time for the Range Rover, so hopefully it's all going to be well. It's got the other one there in the background, which is looking a bit sorry for itself. Been sat there now for a while, but I will get to that. That's going to be next once this is sorted and ready for sale. So let's get to the MOT. Right, I'm back from the MOT. As usual, I couldn't video anything down there because you're not allowed to film the tests taking place because of the government or whatever. So what I'm going to try and do at some time in the future is have a mock test done. So hopefully I'll talk to them down there about talking to the tester about going through. I'd obviously have to pay for the privilege to do that. Don't actually log onto the system and do an actual MOT test, but do a mock test, to do everything you would do on the test and video it, because I think it'll be really interesting just to see exactly what they check and how much. It's quite a lot, and they do it so efficiently. This is how much they do in that short period of time and do a thorough MOT is actually quite interesting. So hopefully, I can get that arranged. So on to my MOT. So on to my MOT. I don't really know how to put this, to be honest with you, because of course it passed. Of course it passed the MOT. And it passed with no advisories. So yeah, I am bloody... Oh, it's gone blank. I am bloody chuffed about that. I am obviously not surprised, but am surprised at the same time. An MOT is always something you just never quite know. When they get it on the, the machine, the jiggler as I call it, and it's, it's bashing those suspension components about. It's stuff you can't really check until it's actually put under that load. So yes, I am very, very happy. So yes, so I'm very, very happy. Obviously there was nothing that he found that he could have found that was even wrong with it. There was no advisories. There's no issues with anything that needs doing. So I'm quite happy about that. So just going to do a little, this is sort of like an outro to this video, but it's also a little bit of a breakdown as to exactly what I've done to this Range Rover to get into this situation at the moment. So I've got some notes here, so you have to excuse me looking down. So it's had front and rear pads. So it's had brand new pads in the front and rear. It's had an oil service, so had an oil and filter change. Now I believe the only reason why I'm looking at this thinking, why have I only done a normal filter change? Because I normally do everything. But I'm pretty sure the service history shows that it's had a recent service anyway. So I believe I only did that just as a matter of course. The rear, the radius arm, I can't remember what you call it, at the rear, obviously you saw me do that in one of the last videos. It had a gearbox repair, obviously, because that was the original fault that I bought it with, and it's had a service, so it's had a new filter and a replacement oil put in it. Obviously all the brake pipes, so it's had two new flexible brake hoses at the front. It's had one new brake line, steel or metal copper brake line, whatever, going from the driver's side across to the ABS. The other side was checked and corrosion protected and painted. The pipes that go down to the rear of the car have been replaced with replacement brake lines, so they are fine. And then obviously the two rear steel and flexible brake lines going down to the rear calipers, so they're all completely been replaced. All the gas struts have been replaced, so the bonnet gas struts and the boot gas struts were a little bit weak, and the external temperature sensor. Any regular viewers of mine have been watching along from the very beginning will know that the temperature sensor said -40 or something, so the actual temperature sensor was actually completely missing. Someone had cut it off. So luckily I actually managed to find on eBay someone selling a temperature sensor and a bit of cable with the plug, so I just connected that in, connected it up, and now it's showing the correct external temperature. So that's pretty much all I've done to it. And then obviously I think it's had new drop links, like one suspension strut's been replaced, stuff like that. So now I'm in a position where I need to now decide what I'm going to do with it. It needs a good clean inside and out. There are a couple of little other issues that I need to look into to whether I'm going to do or not. So it is going to be for sale very, very soon. So if anyone who's watching this who is interested in buying this, knowing what I've done to it now, it's going to be a reasonable price. So I've still got the LPG. I'm going to check, just have a quick check around the LPG system, and I'm going to get it filled up. I'm not going to put a full tank in just in case there's any leaks. And I'll try and do a video on me filling up, whether they let me do that while I'm there. So just to see what the fuel consumption is and how much money, how many miles I get out of a, X amount, because it's at its current point, it's 90p a litre. I checked, my nearest location is 90p a litre. So anyway, that's pretty much it for this video. Thank you very much. It's not the end, because I'm going to do more stuff on this. It's going to be other little bits and pieces I'm going to need to do. It will probably make up another video. So if anyone is interested in buying this car, there is my email address, which I believe I've created, is youtube@roverturbo.net, which I've put in my actual profile in my YouTube. Send me an email if you are interested in it. I am in the south of England, the Hampshire area. Give me a message and then we can talk, because I might get this a little bit more titified and sell it for a little bit more. I'm not sure yet. So if anyone's interested in buying it as it is at the moment, then send me a message and we can talk. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you got this far. I hope you learned something from the video. And as they say, like, subscribe, share. It really helps the video out. It promotes the video up, makes more people watch it, and it helps me produce more videos. So that's it. Thanks for watching again, and I will see you in the next one. Cheers.